welcome to another episode of TVR, The Velvet Revolution, with myself, Ben Rice, and Dave Noble. Good morning, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, mate. It's really good to be with you again,
Yeah.
as always.
It's nice that the light has returned. It feels in this past few days.
What sort of light? What do you mean by light?
Sunlight and just the light. It just maybe lifts everything a little bit. I feel a little bit more warm. I think from the sun's rays after this weekend. It's good. It's good.
Makes a difference.
Really does.
Love it.
So today we're on to the letter B, as we're going to do a letter a week and see where we get to. I'm throwing it open to you to choose the B emotion for today.
Okay. Well, look, I'm literally, as you're speaking, just trying to find a list. Because no snazzy edits here or fancy footwork. It's all live and direct, right?
Mm-hmm.
Live and unplugged. Right, hang on a minute. Trying to find a list. Right, hang on a minute. What have I done with it? There it is. I've got it. Right, okay. So B. Let's have a look. B. So it's not the biggest at the moment, and this is open to interpretation, like we said last time, right?
Yeah.
If anyone feels compelled to sling us some Bs, do you want me to read through them, or am I just gonna pick one off the list?
Yeah, I'd go. Just pick one. Let's just
Okay.
go.
All right. Let's jump it out. I mean, there's so many good. Oh my God. Right. Okay. Okay.
Drum roll.
Boastful.
Boastful.
Yeah.
Why have you chosen boastful? Why did that
Well,
jump out at you?
it sits on the top of the list. I'm not being lazy.
Okay.
But I read it first, obviously, because it's on top of the list of the Bs, and I went through it, and I read through them all, and I went back to it. It just, I just something in me wanted to choose boastful, and it's a word that I can see there is good and bad to that.
Yeah.
Because for me, boastful could be pride.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know. There is healthy pride. It's good to be proud.
Mm-hmm.
But then boastful has this a connotation to it being like the one we covered last week, without getting into last week's one, which was aggression, which there is we found that there is substantiated aggression that's warranted and relevant and needed sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's an energy that can drive things to make change, whatever.
Yeah.
So boastful. You okay with this?
Yeah. I'm just. I mean, there's things that have come straight into my head.
Shoot.
So the thing it makes me think of, and it is around relationships, and I have a habit, or I have had a habit, because I don't always value my own voice. Particularly in male relationships, I have historically always had a very dominant male best friend. So I would say I've had friends that are very boastful, very strong in their sense of self, but that's how it comes across. And I have put myself second. I'm quite happy to hide in the shadows. Even like in my current role, I was deputy, and I was quite happy being deputy. That was kind of comfortable for me because I didn't have to make the final decision. And I was quite happy for there to be a big boss, and for me just to, do the stuff behind the background in the background. And yeah, I do. That's where my comfort zone is. So to come out of that comfort zone and be the person that makes the decisions, it doesn't sit very easily with me. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's where I went to straight away. Was I think of that sort of dominant personality that is very, very comfortable with themselves, and I guess I'm attracted to that at times because I wanted it. I've wanted a bit of it myself.
makes sense. Are you talking past tense, or is this something that's still
I think I have probably shed most of those friendships where I felt there was a massive imbalance, and my friendships now feel much more equal. And
Mhm.
I'm very, very conscious, and I don't want to make this just about men necessarily, because I think women are just as capable of this. But in terms of best friends, it's very rare that men and women are best friends. So uh, in that just sort of friendship sense, not in a relationship sense. But
Mhm.
yeah, for me, men, I have to be very wary of men that I find. It's a bit like a moth to a flame, I guess, in a way. It's a bit like I don't know that that's what I'm attracted to, because I just like the big voice and the strong personality, because I guess I'm trying to, yeah, take a bit of it,
Mm.
sort of take a bit of that glory.
And why not?
Yeah, yeah,
Why not, eh? I'm just, I just looked up boastful in the dictionary,
okay.
right? And, this is a legit dictionary.
That's a very legit dictionary.
It's
Deep
actually one
dictionary.
it's actually one I'm holding in my hands. I can smell the paper. I'm feeling it. It's a real actual
Did you have that one from school? Is that like a
no, no.
I got given a dictionary from school, I remember. I
Yeah,
left primary. I don't know what's happened to it
yeah.
now.
No, I got this one. My brother, inspired me to do it because he bought his kids, that, that weren't yet in their teens. He bought them a dictionary, which I thought was
Mhm.
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of almost like you know, don't just get on the internet and look stuff up. Go to the old school. Anyway, boastful in a dictionary says simply showing excessive pride in yourself, displaying excessive pride. I mean, what's the saying? I've got the ego of a mammoth
Okay. I haven't heard this one.
and the confidence of a field mouse, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely works as a yeah,
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 the ego of a T Rex
yeah.
and the confidence of a little field mouse.
Okay.
You know, I really relate to that saying. That's the sort of saying that I've heard somewhere along the way, and that was something I really relate to, and that's to do with when I started to, go into this journey of looking at myself. That
Mhm.
inventory of who am I and what am I made up of, and I definitely had that.
Yeah.
Um, so boastful, yeah, getting past the it's when we say to someone, "Oh, stop boasting,
Mhm.
stop fucking boasting," you know, that's kind of what it represents, right? Is having that sort of over exerted, forceful, in your face. Look at me, I'm so great.
Mhm.
Kind of thing. Yeah. Do you not think? That's what does that what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I think it's it's, uh, it's something s I think in this country, again, it's a very British trait of, not being boastful, of not putting yourself forward, and, of being quite reserved.
Yeah.
Um, and, I definitely get that in terms of how I perceive myself and how I go around living in this world. I don't. It's very rarely I'm the kind of person that can walk around going, "Yeah, I'm looking really hot today. I'm really confident in myself. I'm really
Mm,
happy with where I'm at." And yeah, that's not my natural sort of mindset. But
mm,
interestingly, it's interesting how other people see you and perceive you in
mm,
that sense because
yeah,
uh, lots of people have said to me as well, you come across as very confident and very
mm,
in charge and very calm. And I
mm,
always feel like that's like the hard shell exterior, the swan sort of gliding, and then underneath I'm just flapping like crazy because
yeah.
full of anxiety and yeah, self-loathing.
But I think that is for me, that's what it is like, like I was going back to the confidence of a field mouse, which I relate to. I have a really healthy, measured sense of self now.
Hmm.
Yeah, I do. I really do. I've had that for a while now, where I feel self-assured in a really healthy way, and I feel confident in a really healthy way. I can hold myself in a really measured way. And I'm very aware that I still have this, ego, this sense of confidence that I can ramp up when I need to,
Yeah.
um, for certain things in life. And I think that's something that everyone, I would presume, can relate to. It's part of our human fabric, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you say now, at what point do you think that healthy balance arrived? Or do you think you've always had a certain
Well,
swagger or a certain confidence?
yeah, I think, right. So uh, my journey um, was one of that field mouse that
Hmm.
was scurrying around the fields, I don't know why I'm latching onto this. Like imagine being the mouse, right? So that's what maybe how I felt, as I felt like a little mouse running around this vastness of life, right? And it's scary. It's scary. And I think life can be quite scary, especially if you add into the mix a certain sense of, and maybe an unhealthy dollop of not feeling safe in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the things that, what makes you feel secure and safe in life, you know? So to a certain degree, I felt quite unsafe, maybe. And I felt maybe a little bit insecure within myself because of it. Naturally.
Yeah.
Maybe I felt, well, I did. It's not a maybe. I felt powerless at times in my life.
Hmm.
And at times it was like I felt really, totally powerless, completely and utterly powerless in life. So it makes sense to me that I built up this um, false sense of, it's like the superhero analogy that I've used so many times. It's that. If you look at any superhero, fictional, if there's any modern day ones we can name. Um, normally the backstory is there's something that is there's something that's happened to them that's given them, it's born out of a need to create this, other being,
Yeah.
the
Oh,
the the alter ego, the
yeah.
the the caped or the masked, whatever. Mask is very apt. It's a masked, persona to go and become, this in the movies they create superheroes that appear to be impenetrable, and but I wasn't one of them. I'm a mere mortal.
Well,
you know.
I went to an incredible talk by Lem Sisse, the poet, and he talks about how many figures in literature, how many sort of superhero protagonists we have that are orphans, and you think about all of, Batman, Superman, he talks about Harry Potter, you go through all this, all these sort of protagonists that we hold up as like our most heroic characters, and they're
Mm.
all coming from a place of loss.
Mm.
And I guess with that loss comes that sense of powerlessness.
Yeah.
And then the mask you need to put on. And I guess I think about, I guess that's what I see when I see a certain gentleman with a certain coloured skin leading one of the most powerful countries in the world. I just think, what have you lost? Why? Well, how can you be that boastful and that arrogant? What have you lost to have got to that point?
Well, I don't know who you're talking about. I'm just gonna say that first,
Yeah.
but I can only presume that the person that you or whoever, doesn't have to be the person that I don't know who you're talking about, but the person that it could be anyone that displays that sense of, it is. I see what you see. It's
Yeah.
just my opinion. There's this really, you know, unhealthy sense of um, I am the bollocks,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Um, I've done I know my fucking oranges, mate. I know my apples. Not through just my own experience, but working with so many people, and I work with a lot of narcissists,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, boastful
Yep.
people. Because that's a trait, definitely. And there's always something missing.
Yeah.
Always, always something dislodged, removed, disconnected. There's a disconnect somewhere. And until you reconnect to the thing, like I did, because it's part of my journey, I've done it. Until I reconnected to my authenticity,
Yeah.
this sense of self, healthy sense of self, you will remain in that altered state of delusion that you think you're like, it's kind of like God complex sometimes. Dare I say it, it turns into that. It can do.
Yeah. And I think it's when we talk about when we feel at our most powerless or our most vulnerable, and I think about teenage years where you're sort of still in that uh growth period. I'm trying to fluid. You're still not quite solid, are you? You're still not working out who you are and where you're going to sit in this world. But it's also the time of the biggest boasts and the biggest sort of like, my dad does this, and if you do this, then this is going to get you. And my
My
dad's
dad,
bigger than your.
yeah, my dad's gonna come down here and smack the crap out of you.
Yeah, yeah,
No, he ain't. My dad's gonna fucking wallop your dad.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's that trying to find that sense of self and that boastfulness, and there is a level of attraction to some of those, and I definitely think that's where I was going when we started talking about this, is that alpha male is not, it's not where I sat. It's not where I
Mm,
felt comfortable. So I went and sought out the alpha male and sort of stood beside them. Um,
mm,
and I wish I had that level of sense of self, that sense of like I'm very confident, like trying to find the positive side of being boastful. But that
mm,
you meet those so assured people, and you're like, where have you got that from? Like you
mm,
said, where's that safety net that you've managed to create this sense of self, which is so strong, and invariably those people get what they want.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. There's what it is. The way I see it is, the more confidence you have, because it's okay to be confident. It's healthy. We want to be. Self-esteem. Let's measure it. Let's quantify it by self-esteem. We all
Yeah,
can relate to that. We know what that is, and we're taught that we need to have a healthy sense of self-esteem. You talk to any clinical psychiatrist, psychotherapist, psychologist, anyone, especially to do with adolescents and children. It's key to becoming a measured adult is to have a healthy sense of esteem
Yeah.
and a good level of it. Now, if you ain't got that, it's gonna be problems. And you know, and if you've got a lot of it, there's gonna be problems as well. There could be.
Yeah.
So I think it's about having. I always come back to the word skillful, and I always come back to the word healthy. And
Yeah.
what does that look like? What is a healthy, measured, skillful display of esteem in a human being, compared to one that isn't?
Yeah.
And I guess that's where the word boastful sits into maybe one end of that spectrum. I can't see how boastful can be associated to having it as a measured healthy. I don't know.
Yeah. It definitely has that negative connotation, and I if you look at the way that anyone who puts themselves above the parapet is considered fair game by the press or in and is shot down. We love a underdog, don't we? In this country,
Mhm.
we love the non-hero, if you like, the anti-hero. And the moment you're considered successful, then you're considered fair game, and anything
Mm.
goes.
Mhm.
And there's never a sense that the being boastful, that being strong around what you're good at. If I ask you now, what are you good at, Dave? What's your strengths? I think now you could probably list me 10 or 12 things quite quickly. But if I'd asked you that 20 years ago,
Oh my God. I
you'd
mean,
go
look,
straight to defects, wouldn't you?
yeah, because I do that now with, when I'm helping people, with what I do in my work, when I'm doing my mentoring, or whatever you want to call it. It's what we're looking for always, let's draw out what skills have you got,
Yeah.
and how do we translate them to benefit you and create, new pathways,
Yeah.
new opportunities, so you can start to build on your self-esteem and the outcomes that you create by the action you take, believing in those said skills,
Yeah.
attributes. And some of those they will see, like you said, as defects, as defilements, as like, I don't really have any. Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Even like, you know, someone that might be in the criminal realm, let's say, who's been, and I did actually talk to someone, this is going back years, man, when I first got into my own journey of, uh, I want to use the word recovery because it's the best word to describe, recovering from a very long chemical romance. I always say this because it's part of who I am, part of who I was, part of my story. Um, it's not who I am now, obviously, but I can talk about it, past tense. And I was talking to a guy, and he made a living going into banks with a sawn-off shotgun, you know,
Okay.
to remove the money from the bank
Yeah.
with a little bit of gentle
Persuasion.
persuasion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was, like me, he was redeeming himself, and he was, he'd completely done a 180. He'd done time,
Hmm.
he paid his dues, and he was now living a very different life, and it was really inspiring, amazing, that he did that. Um, and he was talking, we were talking about, because he was. I remember at the time he was like, I've really struggled. I was struggling to find my place in society.
Yeah.
You know, once I had seen a light and got on this path of redemption, because all I'd known was that world.
Hmm.
And we were talking about exactly what I'm saying, the skill set that is required to do what he did, you've got a certain skill set.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is realign them. So he had a very successful security firm.
Right. Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
The irony.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he, exactly what I'm saying. He had this skill set. He was very good at, he had a lot of knowledge and a way about him that, you've got to have certain, I'm trying to think of something, to do what he did. You've got to understand systems. You've got to understand people. You've got to understand this. You've got to work to, time management is of the essence.
You can dominate a room. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, communication skills. There's more. There's more. I mean, if anyone wants to chip in with what skill set
Takes to rob a bank.
yeah, but there was some. There was a list. There's more. There's loads if you really look into it.
He could do a mean spreadsheet in terms of,
Yeah,
like
yeah. Planning, like
planning.
yeah.
Planning. There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, events management,
It's
right?
He went from holding up banks to organising weddings. Yeah.
Yes. So there's running a team,
Yeah.
team manager.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very hard to take this seriously, but yeah, I get where you go.
Recruitment.
Yeah.
So he didn't work alone,
No,
right? So,
finding the best people for the
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
Skill set, recognizing your weaknesses and
yeah, and
finding the
then
right skill set. Yeah.
there's an element of accountancy involved, probably post
Post. Yeah.
post assignment. So he set up a very successful, and he's doing really well. So an example of some of and the key thing is you've got to realign your focus, your moral compass to point in the right direction
Yeah.
to have a fruitful life. But so look, he was running a security firm, so protecting banks
Yeah.
and business and people and property, etc., which is incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think with the young people, it's finding no matter even when you haven't got to be that extreme. That is just an example I just threw in there. But if you think you haven't got a skill set, you have,
Yeah.
and it's just using it in a good way to build a sense of esteem in a healthy way.
Yeah.
It's just the way I see it, anyway.
Yeah. I think the sense of self is so fragile at that point when you are being asked to make so many important choices and decisions about life that I think we are, definitely in the olden days when you went to a job and that was it for 40 years. I'm hoping now maybe there is a bit more fluidity in life and it feels like people move around. But I know I've had that crisis of confidence before where I've confidence of crisis. I got that right now. Wrong way around. Anyway, I don't know. But, there's times where I've just thought, I can't do this role anymore. I can't be this person. But trying to jump into something else, trying to recognize that, like you said, I've just realigned, someone's strengths into another role. It's
Yeah.
not that easy. It's like people have decided who you are already. Like we talked about that fluidity when you're young, but then you become solid. And that's it. You're in a box and it's too late. It's like, actually, no, I've now realized this is where I want to be, but you're already, no, this is who I think you are and you can't be something different.
Yeah. Seeing a more the broader picture outside the box.
Mm.
Well, I just had a thought. With the world we live in, do you think we've all got a bit boastful because of the way we portray our lives online as an avatar? Or can do, sorry. It's not saying we all do that, but it's almost like it's set up to, because like again, it's my brother. I remember talking to him about it, and we share this because he's like me. You know, we find it really peculiar and awkward to kind of self-promote
Yeah.
online in the way that a lot of people do.
Yeah, yeah.
I personally always found it a bit like once upon a time I would have been all over it like a fucking rash. I would have been because of my, you know, that kind of, you know, T-Rex
Yeah, yeah.
ego that I used to have, right? Still can. But this is the thing is when I've dabbled with it in, you know, more current times, I can't help but feel like I've got that T-Rex ego coming back, you know, and I don't like it. And is that
Yeah.
wrong? You know, is it required to have that kind of like dinosaur, you know, dinosaur not being meaning ancient, dinosaur in you know, in
Scale.
size, in
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
scale. You know, is there anything wrong with having that to, you know, to be on this online space, this you know, this matrix world that we, you know, this other world that we all seem to live our lives on? You know, because it's so far removed from where I'm sitting. It's so far removed from the reality of my actual life that I live in right here, right now. So I always have this real sort of sense of dis-ease with like it just doesn't feel good to me to do that, to be like, look at me. So look at what I'm doing, everyone. I don't like it. It doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't feel natural. I don't like it. But that's just me. That's my experience.
Yeah, I definitely feel there's that sense of needing a shower, a bit of grubbiness after, but I also think like having dabbled in the creative world before I ended up in education, I think it's the people that are confident enough to sell their narrative, to sell their work as a thing that should be desired, are the people that make it. You know, I know so many talented people that aren't world famous
Mm,
because they well, one, they never finish anything, which is my biggest issue, the amount of things I've started and not finished. But it's also there's a sense of like, if I finish it, I'm gonna have to put it out there, and then I'm gonna have to face the world and the
yeah.
criticism and all the critique or whichever one comes. And I don't have a boastful nature where I can go, yeah, I finished this. Look at this. I'm really good.
Mm,
Like, I know I got my validation as a kid from art. I know that's why I draw and I paint, and that's why I'm a creative person, because I always loved it. And when I did finish something and I went and showed the adult, whichever adult that was, they'd be like, "Oh God, you're really good. You should do this." But I've never been able to do that as an adult. You know, there's still a little sense of pride, a little boastful balloon that grows inside me when I'm like, oh, someone goes, yeah, you're really good. You should be an artist. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'd love to be, but I
mm,
don't have the uh, self-belief to do that
mm.
on a day-by-day basis.
Can I ask you
Yeah.
why do you think that is?
Uh, I yeah, I think it is that fear. It's that fear of not being good enough and that imposter syndrome. Like,
Mm.
like stepping into the role I do now, like I'm the head of a school and I never thought I'd be that. I'm a lowly art teacher that, I never thought that that would be me. And
Yeah.
it's still on a day by day basis. I watch these big head teachers in big secondary schools. I'm like, I'm not, I don't really fit in this crowd. Um, and yeah, I think when it comes to my art, I'm just like, I'm just sit at home and I doodle and I make stuff and it's just stuff. It's not real.
But that's the spirit of true art, in my opinion. That's the true artist. It's just doing it for the love of it without feeling the need to bloody ram it down everyone's throat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In my opinion,
Yeah.
you know, you do it for the love of it,
Yeah.
not, you know, you haven't got a motive of like, you know, what's your motive?
Yeah.
You know, what is your motive for doing your art?
Yeah. And I think that's where we feel a little bit grubby
Yeah.
around that
Because,
because you monetize it.
yeah, exactly. I was just about to bring that into it.
Yeah.
So what's the motive? Now, for a lot of people, and fuck it, I'm gonna be bold here and say it. Not everyone, but for a lot of people, what's your motive? Ask yourself that right now. What is your motive for doing the things you do in your life?
Yeah.
Is it because you love it, brings you joy? You know, it serves you in a really, you know, therapeutic way,
Yeah.
and it also serves your fellow humans in a lovely way. You know, it might
Yeah.
bring them joy, it might bring them a therapeutic sense of connection, you know, oneness. I'm getting all cosmic now, but that, because for me, that's my motive for fucking everything. Sorry to swear. I use swear words when I need to have that impact because I'm passionate about it. Um, I don't know why I apologize for swearing it. I never apologize
You never
for swearing.
apologize for swearing.
I don't know. Maybe because I felt it was boastful.
I thi I mean, I did the first thing that comes to my head when you said that was like, I mean, I remember being in therapy a couple of years back, and we were talking about what I loved, and I said, "I love drawing and I love running."
Yeah,
And she said, "How much do you love them? Because you don't do either of them."
yeah,
And I'm like, "Ah, yeah, you might have a point there."
exactly.
And I
S
and I just think, I mean, there was a clip on social media this week, which, I yeah, I don't like to spend too much of my life on social media, but there was a clip from the Doctor Who episode where it was all about Van Gogh,
Mhm.
and the last bit of this episode, they take Van Gogh, the Doctor Who takes him into the future and takes him into his exhibition. I don't know whether I don't remember, it's the National Gallery or something. And Bill Nighy is playing
Oh, I
art
love him.
the art historian that's showing this crowd ramp. And Doctor Who asks him, he said, just like in your opinion, how do you rate Van Gogh? And so Van Gogh's standing there listening to Bill Nighy just do this beautiful speech, which I'm not going to try and recreate because I won't do it justice at all. But basically, he's saying he's the most important artist in the world ever because he managed to put his soul and his heart onto the canvas,
Mhm,
and that's why these paintings sing to us now.
mhm,
And Van Gogh standing there, getting quite emotional
mm.
because he's like, I didn't sell one piece in my life. Well, I think it's one. Did he sell one in his life?
I don't know. I studied him at college, at art school.
Mm.
Apparently, I
Yeah.
apparently I was there at college, and apparently we studied that. And but yeah, I don't. I'd be lying if I said I knew.
But it's that, like you said, he did it because he wanted to, and because
Yeah.
I and I think, I've heard people say, "I do this because I have to." You hear artists say, "I
Mm.
draw every day because I have to."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I understand that more and more as I get older,
Mm.
because if I don't go for a walk,
Yeah.
if I don't draw,
Yeah.
then I do suffer. I do feel
Yeah.
like something's missing. There's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
a hole start
Yeah.
appearing.
So I feel like we're getting really into the nuts and bolts now of like of I love this shit because this is for me my understanding of of how I'm wired, right? Because in a broad sense of my humble experience in life that I've lived, um, I feel like I've had two sort of realities.
Mhm.
One way of doing it, and I've got like another way of doing it, and I've had a certain chunk of my life was doing something in a what I would call an unskillful way.
Yep.
And then I've got a huge proportion of my life now doing it in a skillful way. And I've got that yin yang,
Mhm.
you know, those two opposing experiences. So that provides me with a lot of insight and some wisdom, you know, some knowledge, which I can use for my benefit. And of course, that's why I do what I do. I can pass that on and help guide other people in their own journey of it, right? So the way I see things, what we're talking about here has so much relevance to finding your authentic
Yeah.
sense of self.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be fucking boastful about shit all the time, right? And what I mean by that is when I was running around scurrying through the fields. Imagine being that little field mouse, scared of life, right? Feeling overwhelmed, a little bit powerless, insecure, irrelevant, feeling like an imposter everywhere I went, like you
Yeah.
said, right? Not quite fitting in, not really knowing who I was, searching, because I felt something was missing, right? So I create this duality, I'm the fucking bad man. I'm whatever, I'm this, my own version of a, badass superhero, Captain Dave.
Absolutely.
Whatever, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I'm running around doing that, and I've got the evidence. There's certain consequences, outcomes to that
Mm-hmm.
interpretation of who I thought I was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I hit a wall, because it came to an end. The wheels fell off.
Yeah.
It didn't work. The veil fell. The mask slipped. I got an opportunity to, put down that mask and have a look at what's going on behind the curtain, what's going on. And that's the journey that it started right there with this self-exploration, which shows me that, this is what I was doing. This is why I was doing it.
Yeah.
What's the driving force? I've already said what the driving force was. But I don't have to do that anymore. That little field mouse is, it can be held in life and be okay without having to run around being a twat.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So, and I was scared, ultimately. I was scared. Right. So, that journey has shown me that that's for me what I was doing, and that boastfulness comes from, that unhealthy, really unhealthy, rigid sense of pride that wasn't
Yeah.
accurate. That
Mm-hmm.
false sense of esteem, my minus zero esteem. But I'm presenting to the world, I've got like loads of it. And some of that was, and without getting into it, but medicating, putting loads of stuff in your body to alter the way your perception, so you've got an altered state of reality, is going to be a massive part of that delusion. And so for me, obviously I needed to look at that as well. So that's part of the journey,
Yeah.
as you know. So I got real. Come out of the matrix, mate. So I think it's, for me, that sort of journey of, I had to ask myself the question, maybe I did a lot of the time, who am I? Why am I doing this to myself? Why am I behaving this way? And I think that would be met with, if you was to ask some of the most boastful people in the planet, and I think we can all, if there's a discussion that was started on any sort of chats, it would be endless, because there's so many people that are displaying that at the moment in this world, and there always has been historically. Without getting into it, major players in the history of the world that have caused, and you look at their backstory, like mine, of, why were they running around trying to, force their boastful will on all of us, trying to stamp their, their, I don't know, viewpoint. Yeah.
Narcissistic nature.
Why?
I was
Why?
I was
Why?
listening to a podcast on narcissists, and I can't remember the exact figures, but something like, I don't say, there's 5% of the society is narcissists. By the time you get up to world leaders and people that are,
Mm.
running stuff, it goes up something like 80-90% a narcissist, and it's
Yeah.
just like you said, it's a it's having that confidence
Mm.
and believing your own myth.
Yeah.
And that, like, how many times do we actually ask ourselves, who am I? What am I? What do I
Mm.
like? What makes
Mm.
me tick? What are the things that really make me me?
Mm.
And I don't think they're questions we ask uh,
Mm.
at points when it's necessary.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say for myself, so I'm not gonna compare this to what you just said, but bring it to me, right?
Mm,
I was emotionally undeveloped,
yeah.
right? That's why I was running around in this madness of delusion thinking I'm a T-Rex. You know, the lion of the jungle, roar, the biggest cat in the freaking jungle.
Until you fell over and realized your arm's going to push you back up. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reality is, I'm just this little field mouse, man.
Yeah.
I'm emotionally undeveloped, right? There's an immaturity to my emotional well-being, which I don't need to get into. But for me, it all stems from childhood.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So is it just me that has been affected by that? Or is it the nature of the beast? Is it a thing that runs through, you know, people listening? Do you know people? Is it you? You know people.
If you
You know
don't
what?
know anybody, it is you. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. If do you know people? It could be your boss, But is it any coincidence that people gravitate to positions of power and rise to that position of power very quickly because they
Mhm.
stomp the fuck out of everything in the way, like I used to. I used to. I was very strong-willed.
Mhm.
There was no sense of. I was always right,
Yeah.
even when I was wrong. I was right.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? And if you challenged me on that, I'm just being honest. If you challenged me, I would turn it around. I was so good at turning around and making you walk away feeling like it was your fault. I'd make you feel bad.
Mhm.
How dare you? I mean, is that something that's being displayed at the moment in the current climate? Well,
Could well be,
I'm
yeah.
not sure. I mean, you know, it's my way or the highway, people.
Yeah, the,
Mm,
what's it called? Gaslighting. That, I'm gonna make you think
mm,
you're less than me.
yeah.
And,
And it always,
like,
sorry,
no,
yeah.
no.
And it always comes down to, I was just going to say, it always comes down to accountability.
Yeah.
Like people can hold me to accountability like they did, you
Yeah.
know, lovers, partners, girlfriend, like whatever, whatever context, family,
Mhm.
work, colleagues. They try and hold me to be accountable for my actions. And it would be met with what I just said. How dare you?
I think it's
It's not me, it's you.
yeah. I think it's really interesting the fact you're talking about how you've had to learn how you feel, which is why, just what we're looking at in terms of what we talked about when we started this whole project. And I just see a modern school, a modern curriculum. We're talking about education, and I look at where that sits within education because you hear so many people talking about this idea, oh, school isn't the same. People, there's all these conditions now. Suddenly everyone's ASD or ADHD and everyone's looking for labels and I'm dyslexic, I'm dyspraxic. There's a huge neurodiversity. That's the reality is we're all different. We've all got our own makeup of how our brains work. But the fact is, we've unlocked that Pandora's box now. It's there. We're not shutting it. So you can talk about the fact that when you and I were at school, the chances of there being someone labelled as dyslexic were pretty rare. We just didn't see it. That kid's naughty. He's just messing around.
Yeah.
And we're now in a situation where we have unlocked it all. Yet we're still trying to teach people maths, English, history, French. We're still trying to teach them a curriculum that is so outdated and outmoded. When if we were teaching emotional intelligence, if we were teaching this is how you're going to feel, because
Mhm.
this is the human condition. This is what you're
Mm.
going to feel when this happens.
Yeah.
Everyone feels that way.
Yeah.
The things that we do have in common. And you might feel this slightly differently because you've got ASD, or you might feel this way because you've got ADHD, or you know, uh, those emotions that we're trying to unpick and talk about. That's what we should be teaching people, and helping young people to understand it is okay. We keep on putting these statements out. It's okay to not be okay, but what does that actually mean? What does it mean to feel? And like both you and I have been on that journey where it's like we haven't found out till we're in our late 30s, which is
Absolutely.
which is a huge, huge gap. It's a huge missed opportunity.
I've honestly, this is like so profound. It's so poetic what you just said, in my opinion. Honestly, it's so on point what you're saying, right? So on point. And this is why we, like, you're saying, like, this is why we're doing what we're doing. Not to try and teach everyone how to be emotionally intelligent, or it's just to present our own understanding of what we believe. For me is, I've done a little bit of introspection, self-examination. Like I said, I've got like, let's just say, I was 34 when I, hit that brick wall, 34 years old. So let's just say I've got 34 years of experience getting to a point at 34 where I hit a brick wall,
Mhm.
emotionally, complete fucking
Yeah.
imploded, right? And I'm celebrating a very significant birthday in a couple of months or so. Um, I don't actually want to say it, but it's the center of a darts board.
I just realized I'm doing that next year,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's
yeah.
scaring me.
I know.
It suddenly
I know.
dawned on me that next year is that same
It's
date.
mental. It's mental, innit?
Mm,
But so I've got some experience. I've got a little bit of life experience. And for me, the biggest part of that, it's all valid and it's all,
mm.
relevant. It really is. It's a very incredible thing that I'm so blessed. I really am. I've got a lot of appreciation for all of it, of what I've had to live. I really do. But the 34 years of getting to a point where I could start to get into a place where I could start to drop my shoulders and breathe a little bit and connect to that breath in my body and and connect to being human
Yeah,
properly and
yeah,
actually
yeah.
start to the journey of like, like, oh my God, like it's a rebirth, right? I see why people see it as a rebirth.
Mhm.
Right? So I'm saying it, there you go. I felt like I was like, "Oh my God, I've got another chance," right? And I've been on that journey ever since. And the way I see it is we've got to get to a point, people. Really. I have to get to a point. Like, do I want to live my life, you know, blindly just going with it, think this is my lot,
Yeah.
and I've just got to freaking cope with it.
Mhm.
Just got to cope. That's what I was doing. Well, I wasn't even doing that. Or am I gonna just do a bit of work, bit of digging, just do a bit of graft, right? Because it's bloody graft, just coping,
Yeah,
immense resilience to cope.
yeah.
This is what I say to the young mavericks, like, or anyone, like, you've got to get going back to this sort of, you want to be boastful about your skill set. How amazing. You should be really proud about the fact that you're still alive, grafting, coping in this madness that you're in.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of skill to be able to do that. That's a skill set that you develop. Now, all you got to do is realign that and put the same measure of graft into what you're doing to stay in that fucking shit. into starting to walk a different path. And yeah, it's scary, and the unknown and the uncertainty that comes with that is fucking scary. But guess what? You ain't got to do it on your own. There's
Yeah.
some cats over here that have done it. I'm one of them, and we'll go on it together. Let's do it. You know, and that saying, we love you until you learn to love yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. And one of the most annoying things, you said it, right? One of the most annoying things to me was when people say, all you got to do is love yourself. And it's like, yeah, fucking, I've got my swearing tracks on now. Yeah, fucking great, mate.
Yeah.
Nice one. Thanks for reminding me. But secretly, I'm resentful of you telling me that because I know it. Don't you think I know that? But how the fuck do I do it?
Yeah.
I don't know how to do it. And I'm scared and I'm overwhelmed with that. So guess what? I've got this unhealthy sense of pride and ego preventing me from asking for help and stepping into it. And it's the same thing with, what's the other thing you just said about it's okay to not be okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It's,
Yeah, nice one, mate. Thanks for highlighting that. But how the fuck do I not be okay?
yeah.
Like a lot of people. So anyone listening, like, yeah, it's okay to not be okay, but you're gonna be like me. It's like, yeah, great, nice one, mate. But like, what's the fucking solution?
Yeah.
And that's what we're all looking for.
Yeah. We're looking for the answers. And
Like,
I absolutely resonate with everything you just said in terms of my childhood because I'm absolutely uh, confident in that I had loads of undiagnosed needs. Like I was the kid that got that constant parents' evenings were like, Ben's got a C grade. If he just put some effort in, if he just worked a little bit harder, then he'd get a B and an A, which was what all my mates were doing. My mates were all like found school really easy, and I was the bit of a brunt of the joke. You know, I was a bit stupid according to them. You know, my solace was going to hang out in the art room because that's where I could do stuff and I was confident. You know, well, as confident as I got, but it never made sense to me. If you just work harder, I used to get home from school every day and have at least an hour's kip because I was exhausted in
mm,
trying to keep my shit together in the school and do all the work and do all the different things that were happening and keep myself afloat.
mm,
And like you said, it wasn't enough just to say work harder. What does that look
mm,
like? Because I'm working really hard every day and I don't know what it is that you want me to do. And if you tell me and say, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, that's really easy. I can probably do that.
yeah,
But if you tell me just to work harder, I don't know what that work looks like.
yeah,
And I think that's, you know, like it sounds flippant, but like when I say like I now know that the work for me could be doing a drawing, it could be going for a walk. Those are the healthy tools that I've got now. You know, and we've both alluded to a toolbox that we may have used when we were younger that wasn't as healthy.
mm,
Um, and that resulted in the holes getting bigger and our sense of self disappearing because we didn't know.
yeah, yeah. And I think we're not alone with this. I
No.
know we're not alone.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I was just saying, you know, that monologue, I just jazzed out, went into one of my little TED Talks, but, but like, you know, I'm passionate about this stuff because it's real to me, and
Mhm.
I've been affected by life, and like I say, that rebirth, that's for everyone. We've all got that, and it's getting back to what we touched on the last episode, you know, mm, which was because it's all going to be. I believe this is what's going to come out of this. It's all it crosses over into everything, you know.
Yeah.
Like we covered, you know, the aggression response and, you know, feeling powerless. I'm not sure
Mhm.
if that was mentioned in the last episode, but you know, for me, there's a massive part of powerlessness that comes with being afraid and having anger and being
Mm.
aggressive. Or maybe entrapment, you know, in your situation
Mm.
that you feel powerless over, hopeless, frustration. And it's no different to what we're talking about. You know, it all points to the same place, man. It all comes down to the same thing. Ask yourself this question, people. I've, I've had to do it. I've done it, and I would not suggest anything to anyone if I haven't done it myself.
Yeah.
And just because it works for me, maybe it doesn't work for you. But don't give up trying or searching. But ask yourself the question, how does this affect me? You know, do I feel powerless over my life? Have I got a healthy sense of pridefulness, or, am I a bit deluded into my reality? Does my life require some sort of rebirth in some way? And whatever that means to you, I don't know. I know what it means to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think there is yeah, we're so good at looking out. We're so good at trying to find external validation. And then what we're looking for really is that strong sense of self, and yeah, I am good enough.
Mm.
And trying to find the tools that allow you to do that. So that
Mhm.
you're not becoming, your pride isn't so strong that you can't hear what other people are saying. And I think that's a lot of what's happening at the moment, whether that's on social media or in the bigger world. But we are literally being bombarded with people's boasts. This is what my life looks like. This is how
Yeah.
this is what you should be aspiring to.
I've got 50 billion followers. Sorry, I just interrupted your flow.
Yeah.
Go on,
No,
continue.
that's it, isn't it? It's that we are aspiring, and it's all numerated. It's all bloody, yeah, 50,000. Like, everything at school at the moment is about figures, percentages. Have you
Yeah,
got this percentage? Or
yeah,
what about the individual kid? What
yeah,
about what's going on for that human being? What's happening in their lives that actually they can't just be like, we can't just be all the same,
yeah.
which I think is where we it's where I think we've got to, in terms of, I think, as a species, we are more intelligent and more in tune and more understanding than we've ever been before.
Mhm.
And because of that, like I said, it's that Pandora's box, because we're now like, oh my God, I feel this. But I'm not even understanding it. I'm not even aware of what
Mhm.
that means. So in one way, we are progressing.
Mhm.
And in other ways, we're regressing, because we're like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't actually cope with this.
I've j You 100%, right? And I've just had a thought that's come out of what you're saying is there is this theme, trend with, I'm gonna use the word self-help coaches, life coaches. What
Hmm.
would you call them all? They're
I mean,
of
the
the
amount I've spent on
y
self-help books, yeah, and
yeah,
none of
it's
them,
okay. I've
yeah,
I've read, I've read books, and but there's a lot of there's a trend. There's
yeah,
definitely some people out there that are now celebrities, well known, big
hmm,
names that tour, no different like stand-up comedy. They literally can fill an arena
hmm,
talking on stage about how wonderful they are, right? And
yeah,
everyone's bought into that.
yeah,
And that's okay. They might have some really good stuff that's transformative and can save lives, and that's fucking great. And I'm all for that. But um, why why do we feel the need to? I mean, is this historically? Like, why do we feel the need to hand over that power to someone to tell us what to do?
hmm,
Why do we need that? I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, and it goes back to where we feel most comfortable. and if we feel more comfortable being the mouse
mm,
than the T-Rex, like putting our heads above the parapet and saying, no, actually,
mm,
this works for me. This doesn't work for me. Like I said, I could walking works for me.
mm.
Moving.
Yeah, 'cause there is this just go back to what I was saying, like, there is this, um, massive craze at the moment to, you know it's all about wealth,
Yeah.
like, happiness in the Western world, in this part of the world, these people that some I'm not saying who it is, but there are I'm aware of it, there are certain, you know, people that are promoting you've got to earn lots of, you can create, you've got the house in Bali, you've got the driveway with all the cars you want on it. You've got, this fine living. You can have a yacht if you want it. You have 2 yachts, like, it's a big part of, like, the ethos of, like, this is what it is to have the best human experience, is to create amass this empire,
Yep.
right? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but is that really at the root? Or is that really the primal thing that's gonna fill that void, that disconnect? Is that the thing that's really gonna, if people can relate to what I'm saying here, if you've got that sense that you've not quite got where you wanna get to in life, and you're not quite feeling like, "This isn't it, there's more."
Yeah.
It's never gonna be enough.
No, because
It's never enough.
I think it's aspirationally, we've been told that if we get to a point where we've got 2.4 children, we've got the golden Labrador, we've got the big car in the drive,
Mm,
the glamorous wife, we've got it, we've made it,
mm,
and then that's it. And aspirationally, we're looking at all these people. We're looking at a time now where there's more billionaires, trillionaires than there ever has been before. The gap between the haves and have-nots is stronger than it ever has been.
mm,
So what we're looking at aspirationally isn't a fair divide. It isn't like, the people that have everything,
mm,
they're showing us these incredible lifestyles they lead, and it's not real. And
mm,
as you said, if that's what you're chasing, if you want 2 yachts, if you want the house in Bali, the infinity pool, you want all those dreams, but it's not real. It's never gonna happen.
yeah. Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, honestly, if I'm honest, I wouldn't mind a yacht. I wouldn't mind a house in Bali, like, it'd be pretty cool,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, but is it possible to have that stuff and be really grounded and centered in your sense of self,
Yeah,
and have really the right people around you, and a strong sense of authenticity and
yeah,
integrity?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, have can you have those 2? Because for me, it's authenticity and integrity. It's really key, really important. Never wanna lose that sense, and I've got it, and I didn't used to have it.
No.
So I've got it. Like I said, 34, I regained it. I found it, got my authenticity back, my integrity back. I ain't ever losing that again. No amount of material stuff is ever gonna lead me astray from that shit ever again. And
Mhm.
I will not compromise. I will not trade that stuff off. And I'm not saying other people do that, but I know because I've been around it. It's intoxicating, man. It is. And I've worked with enough people who are,
Mhm.
living their lives in a certain way. Um, it's intoxicating. Do you know yourself well enough to be really grounded in that strong sense of self, authenticity, and have integrity, and not trade that off and become this boastful, you know, all of that stuff. Is that possible? Is
Yeah.
it possible? I don't know.
I mean, I think, like we've both worked with pretty much every echelon of society, and I think yeah, everyone is guilty of it. Everyone wants more. Everyone wants the luxury. luxury handbag and the designer lifestyle. And yeah, are you strong enough to say I'm okay? I've got. I mean, one of my, you know, the footballer Kieran Tierney plays for Arsenal.
I don't know who
You'll
he
know
is.
this story.
Yeah.
He's a Scottish footballer, and he came and plays for Arsenal a couple of seasons ago, and everyone loved him from the start. But one of the reasons everyone loved him is they all got off the bus, and there's all these superstar footballers with their, you know, designer kit bags and, you know, and their headphones and looking all
Yeah.
super cool. And he walks off with a supermarket plastic bag with his boots in.
Love it.
And it's
I love that.
just like, yeah, okay, that's why we love you, because you are a human being.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's
it.
not about, and I just get like that, as you know, that authenticity, as you talked about, that honesty of working out. I'm comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah,
And yeah, that's the gold standard. That's what we're trying to reach, not
yeah,
the wealth of
yeah.
stuff.
Absolutely. And this isn't me passing judgment on, you know, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's just, it's an observation, man. And it's just, you know, I'm entitled to share my opinion on that. But I love what you just shared there. I love that. And that's a bit of me, that is, you know, I'm all into the, um, you know, when I'm going into town to grab some groceries and stuff, I've got I've got a selection of netted bags. You know, the netted bags. Do you have them where you are? Do you
No, I
know
think
what?
that might be where you're at, but yeah,
Do you know what I'm talking
I
about?
do know
Do
what
you
you
know?
mean.
Yeah. I got one. I got my first one, and then I've bought another one. I got two of them, and I love them. I just honestly, I sling it over my shoulder,
Yeah.
and I walk around. You know where I am down here, and you know, I put my apples in it, whatever. I just love it. It's just, you know, that's for me. There's them little things, and you know, make it count for me.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think that's when we see people at their most honest,
Yeah.
and they're not trying to pretense or add a
Yeah.
layer of boast.
Yeah. I think humility is
Yeah.
the opposing um display to boastfulness.
Mm.
Do you think?
Yeah, yeah,
Humility.
yeah,
Maybe we need to cover that at some point.
yeah. How to become more humble.
Yeah. I think, do you think we've got it?
I think that might be today done. That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're there.
Cool. Cool. Okay. Any last thoughts, sentiments, pearls
Uh,
of wisdom?
no, no, I don't have any wisdom left, I don't think, today.
You're
I
playing down. You're playing it down now
I'm
because we've
playing
just
it
covered
down.
boastful. So you're right.
Yeah,
No, I'm being humble now.
yeah, yeah. I have no wisdom. I'm just a simple man. Yeah. I
Okay.
think that was, yeah, that went somewhere where I didn't expect it to.
Really?
Yeah, I come from Boastful. I just didn't know quite where that one was gonna go. So yeah,
Yeah.
quite pleased that where we ended up. So it's good.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it goes. For me, you know, we could easily like, and this isn't just me saying this or us saying this. This is like legit. Like, you know, there's no fancy freaking editing and all that malarkey going on. It's just like, you know, it's unashamedly live and direct, right? It's just that's it. And like, um, when I picked that word, you didn't know I was going to pick that word, right?
No, 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 no.
So we just went where we went with it, and spontaneity at its finest, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. There we go. We are good at being spontaneous. I'm trying to be positive and boastful now. I'm strong about my
Okay,
sense of self.
that's healthy pride.
Healthy
Be
pride.
proud. Be proud.
There we go. I feel proud today.
Yeah. What have you accomplished
Mm.
today? Managed to speak for an hour or so on the word boastful.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Right. That's it. We're done. Thank you so much. Speak to you next time.
Pleasure, Mr.
Okay.
Rice.
You take care.
See you later.